Hello. Today, we're going to talk about setting up a altar in your home. Sometimes they're called prayer corners, and in some cultural traditions, these are actual corners of the house. Someone will go to a corner and place even a triangular shaped shelf in the corner and place the necessary items on there. But when we talk about a prayer corner, it's really a home altar. It's a table that you will have in your home that forms the center of a space for the prayer life in your home. And the reason we have a prayer altar, or what we would call a prayer table, really in the church, the altar can refer to the holy table, or it can refer to the entire sanctuary behind the iconostasis. So when we talk about a home altar, it's really that table that is the center of the prayer life of the family. So I'm going to talk today primarily about how to practically set up a prayer corner, a home altar. And it can be a very simple space. If you look up prayer corners or uh, a home altar on the internet, you can see all kinds of elaborated spaces. And sometimes people will have, I don't know, like 20 icons or whatever up on the wall. And that's fine, but it's not necessary. So I want to talk today about how to have something very simple because you can either have maybe an extra room in your house that you can use as a prayer space, or you may just have a really small area of your house, and that's perfectly fine with a very small table. So here I set this up. This is a prayer altar table here, and what I have in the center is the icon of Christ. You can place the icon of Christ there as their center icon. You can place the icon of the Theotokos holding Christ as your central icon. So you have Christ and the Mother of God there together. You can place Christ in the middle and have the Theotokos on one side and St. John the Baptist on the other side, as we do on an iconostasis. And when you look at the iconostasis from the perspective of Christ, then to his right is his mother, to his left is John the Baptist, from where he is sitting, looking at us. And that's perfectly fine. You can place Christ and the icon of the Theotokos side by side together as central. And it really doesn't matter. Sometimes people wonder if I put the icons of the saints there, where do they go? You can put saints on either side. You can put saints underneath. You can put saints above them. So you can have, if you want symbolically Christ to be the highest icon, but you can also have Christ as the central icon with icons around him. So none of that really matters. I mean, there's not necessarily a rule about how to do it. We want to form the space in a way that is helpful to us and helpful to our kids. In this particular picture, you will see that next to Christ, I have an icon of St. John, the forerunner. And the reason I have this icon, I have a small icon of St. John, is because let's say maybe St. John, the forerunner, is your patron saint, and you have a small space in your house and you want to place your patron saint right there in the middle with Christ on a little stand. You can do that. That's fine. You can put the icons on the wall. You can put them on a stand. Now I also have what's called a triptych, which is there behind the icon of the Theotokos and the Annunciation are on the side panels. So the Archangel Gabriel on one side and the Theotokos again on the other side. And those two panels are the icon of the Annunciation. Sometimes you'll see a similar icon where maybe the Archangel Gabriel and Archangel Michael will be on the other panels. These little icons are often made of carved wood, and a triptych, it's three pieces, so it has two little kind of doors that come out and to form panels, or there is a diptych which just has two, and it's often Christ on one side and the Theotokos on the other, or maybe Christ on one side and a saint on the other. But they're foldable. They're very good travel icons if you want. But you can see in this small case, this small space here, we have just three icons. If you have kids, you can put even small icons of the patron saints and or saints they have a particular devotion to. Sometimes, if someone has, for example, they've gone through a difficult period with mental illness, may have Saint Dymphna, someone who has themselves or a loved one has um, gone through cancer, and or we know someone we're praying for. We have Saint Nectarios is associated with as a patron saint of those who suffer from cancer. If you're in the military, maybe Saint George, Saint Demetrios. So there are a lot of reasons that we have particular devotions to saints, and you can have little icon cards. If you have a small icon and you use it as an icon in prayer, then treat it as an icon, even if you print it out. Um, Once we start using it for prayer, treating it as a sacred object, then we treat it with that kind of respect. If we have to get rid of anything like that, then we burn it, or we bury it. That's how we get rid of things that are consecrated. So here we have those icons, and the icons are there so that we can use them in prayer. And when we pray before an icon, we are praying to the one, speaking to the one who is the prototype, the one that is represented in the icon. And when we have a lot of icons around, or even a few icons around, it reminds us that the saints are here. Christ is here with us. The Mother of God is with us, and the saints are with us. So we have this, the icons. We also have a standing cross. It's good to have a cross, not necessary, but it's good to have a cross there, because the cross being the instrument of our salvation. We can have a little cross that sits there, or one that stands if we'd like. Um, we have on the other side a censer. This is a censer for a home. It is in the open position, has a cover that can close. In front of the censer, there is our prayer books. There's a prayer book, the pocket prayer book from our Antioch and Archdiocese, and underneath there is a book of the hours. If one wants to pray 6 a.m., 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., the hours of the church, that book is there. And we can put any prayer books there that we want. And in front of the icon, I have a glass uh, votive candle container there. This particular one can burn olive oil, but I have in there a candle a beeswax candle actually, and you can have any kind of candle in there and burn it. The idea of lighting a candle to pray is similar to the reason we light a candle in the church. It's a sign of our prayer, a physical sign of our prayer, and just the act of lighting a candle can put us in the attitude of prayer. And it's like the incense. When we light incense, we light the charcoal and we burn incense. And then it is a sign of our prayer rising to God. So all of these things help us to focus our prayer. They are prayers themselves in the sense they're offerings that we're giving to God with physicality. And also they help our kids to associate the light of a candle and the incense with prayer. So this is a very simple altar. And I want to mention here in front of the cross, we have two things. We have a dried up flower that is a red carnation, and we often give out carnations for the Feast of the Cross. And the color red, of course, is related symbolically to the blood of Christ, the red flower. So the red carnations are used and other red flowers for the Feast of the Cross. And also, when we decorate the funeral bier during Holy Week, it's covered in flowers, and those flowers are given out at the end. So we can take those home with us, those flowers, and when they've been used in the worship of the church, we treat them as holy things. And the same is true of the palm branches. So this is a palm branch that has been formed in the image of a cross. And we can take palm branches and just leave them as they are and put them on our altar. Like you on this altar, you could put it behind everything if you wanted, if you had a long palm branch, or it can be put when it's still fresh in the form of a cross, and we can leave it there. So anything we get like that from the church, botanical items that remind us of the church year, different aspects of the church year, we can leave them on the altar. And then all of that's cleaned off at the end of August for September 1st. September 1st is the beginning of the new liturgical cycle. So this beginning of the church year. So we can take these things and we can, you can bury them outside or throw them in a place where they decompose where nobody's going to walk, or you can burn them, or you can bring them to the church. And we have burn bags where we burn things like this as well. Also, holy water that is distributed through the church or from the church by the church after January 6th, the theophany. We can, if we have holy water, we can keep the holy water there on the altar. Anything that is from the church, this is a good place to keep it, and it is a good place for us to pray individually, pray as a family, and it's a place where the priest generally will start if it's in a central part of the home, at least. Sometimes people keep them in their bedrooms or something, but um, if it's in the central part of the home, at least it's often the place where the priest will begin services in the home, like the blessing of the home and that sort of thing. So it's a very simple um, prayer altar, home altar. And I want to reemphasize it can be very, very simple because, again, you'll see, you can find extremely elaborated versions of this. Now, I will say if you have small kids, it may not be a bad idea instead of having a table like this, having a shelf or having a shelf above the table where they can't reach candles and incense burners, the censer, or those sort of things. So that's always good to keep in mind. And if you have any matches or light or anything, you can keep that of out of place so kids can't get a hold of it. This particular table has drawers, and the drawers are nice to keep things also from the church. For example, a baptism or chrismation candle, if you kept that or intend to keep that. Hair from the tonsuring of baptism, we can keep that in there. If there's big enough, like wedding crowns and other things that we receive from the church that again we want to regard as holy or just a reminder of the life in the church. We can, if we have drawers, we can always keep it in there as well. And I wanted to mention this again on the previous picture. We had a old version of the Pocket Prayer Book. This is the new version of the Pocket Prayer Book, Orthodox Christians, which is our little official Archdiocese prayer book. It has the liturgy, the newest translation of the liturgy in that book that should match our books that we have that are in English and Arabic and the narthex available. The language of the prayer should also typically match our services as well. So that if you learn the Trisagion prayer from this book, that it's the same one we'll be doing in the services. And as evening prayer, morning prayer, and other prayers, and their occasional prayers, which are prayers you do according to the occasion, are in this book as well. So I highly recommend this book, especially morning prayer and evening prayer. I put out links to the same prayers that are available online, but it's a very small book, which is good for travel, good for actually keeping in our pocket and our backpacks and everything. We also have here the Orthodox Study Bible, so you can keep the Bible if your table's big enough on there. And if you like, you can do the daily readings. I mean, much of what is available today is available on our cell phone. So you can take your cell phone to your prayer corner, and you can do prayers from your cell phone, but you can also look up the daily Bible readings from your cell phone. And and in the future, I may do a video on how to do services at home with the church when you just can't make it to church. It shouldn't be a substitute when you can come to church, But if you live far away, or you have bad weather and there's a Vespers going on at church, you can do a Reader's Vespers at home. And same thing with morning prayer. We can do morning prayer at home, Orthodox at home. So some of the services um, can be done at home. When one cannot be at the liturgy, for some reason, there is a service that replaces the liturgy called the Typica. In fact, if something happened and the priest couldn't be at church, when the people gather together at church, they could typically do Orthodox morning prayer and then the Typica together. But the Typica could be done at home. But in the future, maybe I'll do something on that. This is an icon that makes a very fine central icon in your prayer corner, and I wanted to mention it. This particular one is was painted by Nick Pappas, the original, and it is called the Deesis. Christ is enthroned, and the Deesis is the icon of Christ enthroned with John the Baptist to his left and his mother to his right, and they are both interceding for the world before the throne of God. So here you see that the Theotokos and John the Baptist, their hands are up in supplication for the world. So it reminds us that the Theotokos and John the Baptist, Christ's mother and his cousin in the flesh, they are really the chiefs of the intercessors in heaven. We regard them as the two who are leading all the prayer of the saints for us here on earth still running the race. So this is very nice because again it matches the iconostasis. Normally you would have these three icons on the iconostasis, and then to the right of the Mother of God from her perspective, you would have the patron saint of the church, and you could always, if you want, put the patron saint of the church up there, Saint Raphael, or you can put your own patron saint up there, or whatever. There's again there are really no rules with our prayer corner as far as where we place things and what particular icons we have there. But it is good to have Christ central, right, to our prayer corner. Now, this particular one is available from St. Demetrius Press, which is Nick Pappas's workshop press, where he sells his icons. But there are different versions of this. You can find many different versions of this from different iconographers. And this is an example or two examples of seasonal icons. So we can change out icons by the season. So right now, this is also one of Nick Pappas's icons. I had him teach a class via Zoom at St. Raphael once on his Tree of Jesse icon. And he has a nice explanation of what each of those figures in the Old Testament, what they're holding. And these are those who showed forth Christ from the Old Testament. So you have Jesse down there at the bottom, and all of those who showed forth Christ uh, being on this tree with Christ and the Theotokos being there in the center. It's a wonderful icon for the fast and the nativity because we are commemorating the ancestors of Christ and we are commemorating the prophets of the Old Testament. So it reminds us of all that preparation of human history that leads us to the incarnation as we are preparing and remembering those in salvation history who were before Christ preparing for his coming. So this is a really good seasonal icon for the Nativity fast. And then over next to it is an icon um, of the Nativity. And there are many different versions of, different versions of both. This is Nick Pappas's Tree of Jesse, and you can find other versions. One of which I think I have a version that we'll be putting out when we don't have any other major commemoration. We'll be putting it out on the icon stand and the narthex uh, during this season. And then the Nativity, many different versions of the Nativity. Often, actually, the Theotokos is reclining in the Nativity icon. In this one, she's kneeling, but this one has um, angels and magi and shepherds, and others are either more focused on the Theotokos and Christ in the cave, and others are more elaborated and larger. But we can put this out, and then we can keep this up until we get into through the Christmas season, and even keep it up until Theophany if you want to put out the baptism of Christ. So if you would like to, if you have a seasonal icon, you can put it out. If you don't have a seasonal icon, that's okay. So I want to talk about the censer, and this is a censer for the home. You can see an example of a brass censer there. They can be very simple. And then what we put in the censer is charcoal, and this is an example of a common charcoal that is used. That's called Three Kings. It's a quick light charcoal, which means we light it, and then you can see almost like lightning go through it. And then after it lights, then it begins to turn gray. And that's the ash on top and red inside. So you have kind of that layer of ash on the outside, and then you can kind of see the fire on the inside, and that's when you know it is ready. And what I do at home is take these little briquettes, and they can be broken up. I mean, even break off if you see that there's a raised ridge around the edge. In church, it's very important, or I would say it's useful to have that edge because I have the censer that I swing, and having a raised edge may keep the incense there on the charcoal better. But when you're home, you can even take your finger and break off the edges into little pieces, and then the pieces don't have to be very, very big at all, because you're going to take a very small piece of incense and place it on a very small piece of charcoal, and because you don't want a lot of smoke, especially if you have a smoke detector nearby. So you really don't need much incense. You don't need much charcoal. So you can take it and break it into quarters or even more than that. And you can break it into a lot of small pieces, and use it. And this charcoal and censers like this, these are items along with prayer books and icons that we are planning to have in our new bookstore, which will be on the stage in the hall. We're really trying to start getting inventory right now. We already have, I think, some sensors in, so we should start selling these things pretty soon. So our goal with the bookstore is really just to provide these kind of items for people that want them in the church. So the way this works is you would take the censer and you would open it, and you would place the charcoal or small piece of the charcoal inside. I want to go back to my picture here. You'll see that it is open. This is very important. It's important because you um, need oxygen. And so you want to take the charcoal and place it in there, light it, and then when it gets hot enough, then you will take a piece of incense. And here there are different kinds of incense. My favorite actually is just pure frankincense. So this is an example, one or both of these, maybe both. I'm not sure, but one of these at least is Ethiopian incense. And there are different varieties: Ethiopian incense, Somalian, uh, Ethiopian frankincense, I should say, Somalian frankincense, and Omani frankincense. So frankincense from different places, different grades, and it really doesn't matter. Um, Sometimes you can get these in larger chunks, and you can even break them up into small pieces like this, smaller beads, because you do not need much if you're in a home, or especially an apartment, but we really don't need much. And we use a little bit more in the church because we're going to be using it for a longer time. And once the charcoal is hot, you put the incense on, and then it will begin smoking. And there's another type of incense on the other side, and you will see this. Sometimes frankincense is used as a base, and then other types of spices or floral scents will be added to it. So there are a lot of different kinds of incense. And I burned cassia, which is cinnamon, recently in the church. And sometimes I use something, I think myrrh, recently with some myrrh there, and then maybe something floral. So there are a lot of different varieties. And when it's processed, the pieces of the incense are kind of sticky, so they are tossed in like a clay powder, So this kind, you'll notice if you ever touch it, there's a lot of little like white powder in your hands or pink powder as I think it's probably colored pink in order to so you can tell what kind of incense it is. Differentiate between the different types. But if you have like colored powder, that's just it keeps the pieces of incense from clumping together. And again, you just need like one piece if you're in your house. But again, what's very important is that you keep the sensor open because the charcoal needs oxygen. And when you're done with the sensor, then you close it. And this is the same that is true of the sensor that I use in the church with the bells. When I go around and I sense the icons and sense the people, you may notice there's a chain that pulls up the top. And when I sense, I hold part of the chain so that it's open. And I go around and I sense and it is open. And I only close the sensor, put the top down on the bottom part and close it off when I'm done with sensing for that day or that service. Because then I want the charcoal to go out. So when you are done with sensing or you can take the sensor, you can pick it up even and just, um, wave it in front of your icons if you'd like we sense in the church. But when you're done with all of that, or if you think you're getting a lot of smoke, then you can just close it off. And I do recommend also if you'd like, you probably may not want to um, get rid of put a hot coal anywhere. I recommend that you just, if you can, just close it and leave it. If you ever need to get rid of a hot coal, you can always like take it outside and pour water on it. I've done that before, and then it's definitely dissolves. It's gone. It's out. But it's good to have a little can with a top on it, like a coffee can, so that you can empty your ashes in there and old charcoal. Get rid of it. Um, you can do it every time or just every once in a while. When you get ash built up, get rid of all of that ash. And it's good to have something with a top just in case there's ever a hot coal in there. Then again, if something has a lid on it, it's going to cut off the oxygen. Yeah, so there you go. That's a few things about having the prayer corner. We can just set it up. It can be simple. Um, and you can make it as elaborate as you would like, but the idea is really about prayer. So you can keep it simple. And this is a place again where you can go uh, for morning prayer, evening prayer. It's good to have this place. It's good for you to know anytime you need to pray, like to go and have that familiar place of prayer. And it's good for our kids to know that there's a place they can go, but it's a little bit quiet. Some people, yeah, I mean, you can literally put it in a closet if you want. Some people put it kind of in the middle of the house, and others may have it over in a quieter place. And really, it depends on your family. Like either one is fine. But this little table is there to give us physical space that is an extension in some ways of the altar at the church and the holy place of the church, the holy space of our church temple. All right. Have a good day.